Good afternoon. Welcome to Afternoon Art Club for 1st through 3rd graders. Today is Thursday, April 29th, and this is April Session 2. This month we are working on learning all about origami. So last time we worked together to create 3 origami animals. We made some puppy dogs together, and we made some little. Very good. I love seeing those. I love the faces you've drawn. And we made some penguins. Very good. And we made some fish. And today we are going to, very nice, those are lovely fish. Today we are going to be creating an artwork that uses some of our origami. We might be folding a little bit more origami depending on what you have with you. And so we're going to be using our fish today. So I made some fish. We made some fish together last time. They looked kind of like this. Today I'm going to show you how to make some little smaller fish. That one's upside down. So we have some grown-up fish and some baby fish. Very good. And we're going to put those guys together in an environment. So we're going to create an environment for our origami fish to live in today. So we're going to be working with lots of different materials, and we're going to be working with some of the origami we've already done. And depending on how much time you have and the materials you have, you can always make a little bit more origami, and I'll show you how to create some of these smaller ones. So if you have these big origami shapes, but you want to have some baby fishies to go with your grown-ups, then we will work on that together today too. So I'm going to jump right in and go ahead and start sharing my screen so that you can see my table surface. I'm going to go over some of the tools and materials that you're going to need today. Everything that you're going to need today can be found in your art making kit, hopefully. So I'm going to go through those. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Get this going here. It always takes a second to get it just right. All right, here is this. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit here and then lock my focus so that we can clearly see exactly what we need to do. All right, here we go. I'm gonna lock my focus and get that out of the way. All right, guys. So I'm going to move this just a touch. It's hard to get this to stay exactly where I want it. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can encourage this to do what I want. Whoa, hold on. All right. Nope, that's too much. Okay. Well, we're just gonna leave it like this. Okay, we're gonna go with this. Okay, guys, so let's go over the supplies and materials that you're going to need today. And these things can be found in your art kit. So in your art kit, you have a stack of colored construction paper, and you're going to want to pull that white sheet of paper out of there. Now, these pieces of colored construction paper, we're going to use these next time in our May class. So don't use these, just grab the white piece out of there. You're also going to need another white sheet of paper that's like a big sheet of printer paper or any kind of white paper that you can get your hands on. If you have a kit from us from a previous month, this had lots of white paper in it as well. So you're going to need a sheet of white paper. If you can't find white paper, then you can use just any colored paper or notebook paper. Whatever you can get your hands on will work just fine. So I've got my big sheet of white paper. And I've got my white paper, my smaller sheet that is out of the kit. I have a little bit of origami paper here. I might want to make a few more little fishes because I want to show you how to make small fishes as well as your big ones. So you're going to need to gather these things. And we are also going to be doing a little bit of drawing and maybe painting today if you would like. So you could do all of this activity with crayons, or you could do this activity with the paint that comes in your kit. So let me show you what you'll need for that. You're going to need a pencil. There is a pencil in your art making kit. You're going to need a pair of scissors. All I have are grown-up scissors, but in your art making kit there were scissors for children, so you do have those. You're probably going to need a glue stick, which was also in your art making kit. You're going to need, this is a lot of supplies for today, isn't it? You're going to need some paint and a paintbrush. So these are the paint strips that were in the kit, and this is the little paint swab, and you're probably going to need a little bit of water. Now, you're not going to need all these at once, so you don't have to go grab everything at one time. I'll kind of show you what you need as we keep moving along. This artwork may be something that you want to complete over the course of the next couple of weeks. So this is not something that needs to be finished all today. You are welcome to start it today and then come back and finish it as things dry or as you have time to work on it. So let's start with let's kind of move all this stuff out of the way and just start with our large white sheet of paper. So what we're going to do today is create, hold on one second, I'm going to open my chat box. There we go. We are going to create, a fishbowl. We're going to create a fishbowl for our fish to live in. Then we're going to create an environment in that fishbowl. And this is kind of what our fishbowl is going to look like. I'm going to show you how to make this. We're going to do this together. We're going to sort of create an environment in our fishbowl that our fish might want to live in. And then we will add our fish. So those are all the steps of the process. But we're going to start with our background paper, and that's just a white sheet of paper. We are going to do a little bit of folding on this to make it easy. So we're going to fold it. I've got it sitting long ways, or landscaped orientation, horizontally. And I'm going to fold my paper in half. Just want to try and match up the edges if I can, just like when we're doing origami. Matching up the edges is important. So I want to match up the edges and just give the paper a little crease. And I'm going to turn it so that my fold is on the left-hand side. So you can see the fold right here on the left-hand side. And I like the fold to be on the left because I'm right-handed. So if you're left-handed, you might want the fold to be on the right so that you can work this way. Either way is fine, whatever's more comfortable for you, but you do need to know where the fold is because that's where we're going to start drawing our lines. So once our paper is folded, here's my folded edge right here. This side is the fold. I'm going to start kind of down at the bottom. And I've got this, I'm going to turn it at an angle just so you can see. But I've got my paper and I'm going to start at the fold. I'm going to put my pencil sort of near the bottom at the fold. And watch what I do. Just watch me first. I'm going to draw kind of a straight line, as straight of a line as I can, over, not all the way. So I left maybe 3 fingers worth of space right here. And I just sort of drew a straight line near the bottom. So that's what it looks like so far. All right, so I've got my straight line at the bottom. Now, I'm going to put my pencil at the end of my straight line here, and I'm going to draw a backwards C. The letter C, just draw it backwards, kind of like this. A backwards letter C. And this is going to be the base of my fishbowl. So I did a backwards letter C. Now I'm going to make another backwards letter C, but I'm going to start right here where this one finished. I'm going to start right here, my pencil point here, and I'm going to make a big, wide backwards letter C, or kind of like a sideways rainbow. I could even turn it this way and kind of make it like a rainbow. I want it to come, watch how I do this. I want it to come close to the edge of my paper, and I want it to be nice and big, just like that. So it's nice and big, close to the edge of my paper, but not all the way up at the top. I want to leave a little bit of space at the top. So I started right here, and I just drew sort of a rainbow. And I turned it like this because it was just a little bit easier for me to draw that line when the paper was sideways. So I made sort of a rainbow. And now I want to do sort of the lip of my fishbowl, the top part that keeps the water in. So I'm going to draw another backwards letter C, just like that. And a straight line all the way to the fold, just like that. And that is going to be my fishbowl. Now this is folded in half. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my scissors. So I've drawn the outline of half of my fishbowl, but I'm going to cut both layers of this folded paper out at once so that when I open it up, it will be exactly the same on the left as on the right. It will be symmetrical. So you can watch me. I'm going to just cut this out, cut around that curve. Cut around my rainbow shape here. Okay. Cut around this curve. Whoops. There we go. This is a good way to practice our cutting skills because there's some curves and some straight lines. And that's what it looks like. I just cut that out. And when I open it up, ta-da, I have a fishbowl. So my fishbowl is ready to move in some fish. So this is the one I showed you earlier. Here's the one I just did. And now we want to create a fishbowl environment that our fish would want to live in. So think about it. If you were a fish, what would you want to be in your environment? I like thinking about this, and I like to use some crayons when I am deciding what I'm going to have in here. Now you can watch me here. In your kit, you had some crayons that kind of look like this. You could use any crayons you have at your house. It doesn't have to be any specific kinds of crayons. So these that came in your kit, these I've used up before, but they look like this. Those work great. Or these are just a few random crayons I had at my desk. So I'm going to use a few crayons here. Now, with my fishbowl, I'm going to start by drawing in some details. So you might just want to watch me first. First thing I'm going to draw is some sand kind of near the bottom. So I could do that. You know, they make all that colorful sand and little rocks for fish bowls, little pebbles. But I'm going to start just by kind of adding a sandy surface. I'm kind of making a curved edge here because part of my fishbowl is like glass. So I want to sort of give the impression of the glass part of the fishbowl. And I'm just going to kind of give a surface, like a sandy surface on the bottom of my fishbowl. And I can color this in, or I could just do little dots to sort of signify the sand here. And I could do dots with a few different colors if I imagine that maybe I have some different colors of sand mixed together here in my fishbowl. So I'm just kind of creating an environment that might be a nice place for my fish to live. I love thinking about what these different environments might look like. It's almost like a little tiny landscape. If you did afternoon art club with us in the winter, then you might remember that we created landscape paintings. So creating a fishbowl is kind of like creating a little tiny landscape. So I just put some little dots there. I might use my yellow crayon and add a few more dots just to add a little more color, because I do want my fish to enjoy a colorful environment. So I'm just making little dots with my crayon. It doesn't have to be dots. Yours could be larger circles, or you could have just colored this in, or you might not have a colorful base at all, whatever you would like yours to look like. And now I think I want to create a little plant for my fish. I like it when you look in a fishbowl and you see those little flowy water plants. So I'm going to give my fish a plant in his environment. So I'm going to kind of give it a little flowy seaweed here. I'm just kind of making some curvy seaweed lines. Just doing sort of a curvy line and a curvy line and making them meet at a point. You can imagine that there might be some back here as well. All right. So now I have this plant that my fish can live and hide in. I'm gonna put just a little bit of detail in my leaves. There we go. And maybe I even want to color those in a little bit. You can feel free to create your environment to look any way you want. The reason I like to use crayons when I'm doing this is because I will come back and paint the water blue. I'll come back and paint the water blue. And the crayons are going to resist that blue watercolor paint. We've done some watercolor resist in Afternoon Art Club in the past. And I love the idea of that. All right, so I'm just going to add a little color here. All right, so now my fish have a fun environment to live in. I'm going to add just a few more little details here, and then we'll be ready to paint next. Now, if you have more details you want to add, you can. You can think about, sometimes you can see little buildings inside of a fish bowl, or maybe some rocks or a little tunnel for your fish to swim through. Whatever kind of fun environment you can think of for your fish to live in. This is a home for your fish, so anything you want it to look like would be great. All right, so now my fish have a plant, and they have some really lovely sand down at the bottom. And I want to go ahead and put some paint. I want to paint the water into my fish bowl. So let me show you the supplies that I'm going to need for that. I'm setting my crayons to the side. I'm done with those. If you're still using your crayons, then go ahead and keep coloring, and you can watch me while I add these details. And this is something you can always add later. So let me show you some of the options that you have. We have your watercolor strips that came in your kit. And with that, you can use this little tiny paintbrush that came with it. And now I've lost mine. It must have fallen somewhere. So that's just a little black paintbrush somewhere here on my desk. Not sure where it's gone, but that's okay. It was just a little black paintbrush. Oh, here it is. A little black paintbrush with a white swab on the end. So if you have a kit from us, you can use this. If you do not have a kit from us and you're using materials from home, this is just a watercolor paint palette that I have here in my office. It's not anything super fancy. And this is just a paintbrush that I have. So either one of these combinations will work. I could also use my little paint swab with my watercolors here, or I could use a paintbrush with my watercolor paint strip. So any combination of these materials that you have will work just fine. And I'm going to show you a little bit of both so you can kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. I also, because I'm using watercolor paint, need a little bit of water. And you might want to use a paper towel, or this is just like an old cloth that I like to use when I paint. And I'm going to use that to just kind of pick up the extra water. So I'm going to put my paintbrush in the water first, and I'm going to wake up my watercolor paint. And the way we wake it up is just by putting a little bit of water in there. So I've got this watercolor paint, and I'm just giving it a little bit of a wake up by just putting water in there. Now, if you're using a paint strip, I'm going to rinse this off so I can show you this. If you're using one of our paint strips, you do the same thing. You have to wake up the color. So I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm going to get a little water on it, and I'm going to put it on the paint color that I want, and I'm going to wake up the paint that way. Okay? So once I've kind of woken up my paint and I've got some on my paintbrush or on my paint swab, I'm just going to start painting. Now I want to start by sort of creating an outline. And what I mean by that is I want to create an area where the water stops right up here at the top. Because in a fishbowl, the water isn't overflowing up to the edge. So I'm going to kind of create a little line that is where my water stops. So I know I want to paint everything below that line with my paint, okay? So now I'm just going to get my paintbrush, and I'm going to just start painting in the water. Now you can leave a little white edge, or you could paint all the way up to the edge. It doesn't matter, whichever one you'd like to do. And you'll notice, look at that, when I get down here to where my crayon is, you'll notice that that paint does not stick to, you see that? You see how it just kind of rolls off of my crayon lines? It doesn't stick anywhere I have those crayon marks. I love that about watercolor paint. So I'm just going to kind of keep adding color here. I can add, this is sort of a different color of blue. Remember, if it's too dark, you can lighten it up by adding a little more water. So I'm just going to go right over the top, kind of blending in my paint. I can add just some water if I want to lighten all that color up, but it should be pretty fast. It shouldn't take too long to paint this a nice blue watery color. You can still see all those beautiful dots of the sand down there. That's one thing I just love about watercolor paint and crayon together. They work together so nicely. All right, so I am just creating a watery environment for my fish to live in, because fish have to have water. So I'm going to just kind of paint under that line, that water line I made. Just kind of keep painting, keep moving the paint around. I'm using both my watercolor strip and my watercolors. You can use either one you have, or if you have both, you can use both like I am. I just like to show you that you can use anything that you have available to you. You don't have to have fancy art materials to be able to make really phenomenal artworks. All right. Okay. And I'm going to just finish this up right here. Add a little water to that. And finish spreading my paint. Shouldn't take too long to get it all finished up. Keep moving that paint around. All right. There we go. Beautiful watery watercolor. Pick up some of this. Okay, guys, so we have added our watercolor paint to our environment, and that's it. Our fish bowl is created. This is the environment our fish have to live in. This looks like it might be a really nice place to live, to be honest. If you wanted to go ahead and paint your whole entire paper blue, you could. You could add all this in blue. I sometimes like to leave a little bit of white, but if you feel like it makes it feel a little bit better, then you can add paint wherever you'd like it to be. So I went ahead and did the bottom blue, but I'm gonna keep this white part up here. Okay, kind of got out of the line right there, but that's no big deal. Okay, now let's see how we can add our fish to this. I'm just gonna keep adding paint if I don't walk away from it. All right, let's see how we can add our fish to this. So I wanna show you, while your painting is drying, you wanna be really careful. We're not quite ready to glue our fish down yet, but our fish are going to live right in our fish bowl. And they can swim right in front of those plants, just like that, kind of layer them into our fish bowl. So let me show you really quickly. I'm gonna set this aside to dry for a minute while I show you, and I'm all done with the paint now. It's just a little bit of paint today. I wanna show you how to go about making some smaller fish. So if you have already made some small fish, that's great. But if you haven't, you might want to know, how do I make smaller fish? Because I've only tried to make these big guys, but you might want to try making some smaller fish. So let's talk about how we do that. You're going to start by getting a sheet of origami paper, if you have any left. If you do not have origami paper, you can remember that last time I showed you how to make your own origami paper, just with a sheet of white paper. And you do that by taking your white paper and folding it like this. Remember, folding it down, making a crease, and that gives you a smaller sheet of paper. So that is a possibility. You can make some. But if you still have any sheets of origami paper, then you can just use that. And here's what we do. We fold our paper in half. I'm just going to take a sheet of origami paper and I'm folding it in half. I'm going to be careful to match up the edges exactly, just like that. And I'm going to open it up so I have a straight line going from top to bottom. And then we're going to fold it again the other direction, the other way. So, and then I'm going to open it up again, and I should have what looks like the letter T on my paper. See, I've got a line going this way and a line going that way. And in order to make smaller sheets of origami paper, all we have to do is cut very carefully along those lines. So I'm going to cut super carefully on my fold lines. I want to try to make sure I stay on the lines so that my papers are just the right size and that they're a perfect square. I cut apart my 4 sheets like that. You see? So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 smaller pieces of origami paper, just like that. Now I want to remind you how to make the fish. We went through that last time, and there is the video from last time on our website, but I do want to remind you how we made our fish. So I'm going to very, very quickly just do a refresher for you, and then I'll show you how we can put our fish in their environments and add some final details. So the first thing we're going to do is turn our paper, put a piece of small origami paper on your table with the white side up. The colored side is down against the table. And I'm going to fold, and I have this kind of shaped like a diamond with the point at the top and the point at the bottom. And I'm going to fold the bottom point up to the top point and make a fold like that. This is just a reminder. We did this last time, so you should have some memory of it, but this is just a reminder to make sure you know how to do it. So we fold our triangle in half, then we open it up, and then we turn our paper, still the white side is up, and that line is going up and down now. We turned our paper so it's still a diamond shape, but the line is going up and down. And we're going to take the bottom and fold it up again. And so now our paper, if we look at the colored side of our paper, it should look like we have an X. Like that. Should look like we have an X on our paper. Now I'm going to lay my paper back on my table like it's a square, so it looks like a square. And I'm going to fold it. The colored side is up and it's sitting like a square. I'm going to fold the bottom up to the top, match up both corners, and crease it. Just like that. Then I'm going to open it up. I'm going to turn it so that that line we just made is going up and down. I'm going to take the bottom corners and I'm going to fold them up. All right. And now when we open this up, we should have what looks like an X and what looks like a T. So we have the X and the T. So just as a refresher, we folded triangles and opened them back up, folded two triangles and opened them back up. Then we let it like a square. We folded it in half and opened it up. We turned the paper, folded it in half, and opened it up. Now, when we're looking at the colored side, if you push in on the sides right there, push in on the sides, and kind of pinch it, it should fold to a triangle that looks like this. And from the top, it looks like that, kind of like it has an X. Okay, so we should have something like that. I'll show you one more time how we got there. We were here. I pushed on the sides. Whoops. There we go. I pushed on the side, push, and then just kind of pinched these, and that gives us the triangle. All right, and now we're ready. You can see we're getting close. Now we just need to make our fish's tail. So in order to make the fish's tail, go ahead and set your paper so that it looks like a triangle. We're going to take this flap and we're going to fold it from that top point right there and fold it so that it kind of hangs off a little bit like that. That's part of its tail. So I'll show you what I did there again. It was folded like this. It was laying flat like this. I took this corner and I made a crease from the top so that that had a little area poking off. And I'm going to open that back up and I'm going to fold this side just to that line right there to match that line I just made. Match that crease like that. Fold that other one on top, and there, ladies and gentlemen, is our fish's tail. So there's our fish, just like that. So now, with these smaller pieces of paper, you can fold fish that are smaller. The smaller the sheet of paper, the smaller the fish is going to be. So now I have a grown-up fish, and I have a couple of small fish. Don't forget that if you want, you can give your fish eyes. So I'm going to give this one a nice long eye. Maybe it's looking down like that. You can just do a dot eye. This one I did a circle with a little dot in front. You can give your fish gills if you want, so it can breathe. Just like that, really simple, just curvy lines. And or you could add scales to your fish. You could do all sorts of patterns and designs. So once you have at least one big fish and maybe a couple of little small fish, we're just about ready to give them their new home. So I'm going to take my fish. This fish is so tall, his fin is sticking out of the water. And I'm going to decide where they're going to go in my fish bowl. So I want the grown-up fish to kind of go over here. My paper's dry now, so if yours is still wet, let it finish drying. I've got this little fish here. Give him some of these. Okay, you can see, maybe I've got this one down here. Go ahead and just keep arranging them. All right. So I can move them around. Maybe I want the grown-up fish kind of going this way. Or maybe I don't want any grown-up fish. Maybe I want a whole fish bowl full of baby fish, just like that. And I can just put them wherever I want them to go. And then all I have to do is glue them down. This is my glue stick. I'm just going to flip it over to the back. Whoops, put some glue on my fish. It's awfully sticky. You might even have to glue his little tail down just to kind of help a little so it doesn't keep popping up. So you can put a little glue on his tail if you want. Put some glue on the back of your fish and find where you want him to live in your fish bowl and just glue him down just like that. Okay, so maybe I want this one here. Do I have room for a grown-up fish in here too? Whew, that's a tight space. Maybe we'll just do baby fish in here for mine. But I think it would be really fun to have different sizes of fish in your fish bowl. So you could do the big ones or little ones. You can see I'm just adding glue with a glue stick to the back. Really simple. And add this one coming down this way. Maybe this one's going up to the top to get some fishy food. Or maybe it's swimming down here at the bottom looking for fishy food. And then we've got one more finishing detail that we can add to our origami watercolor painting. I'm gonna add this guy looking for some food down here in the sand. All right. Now, if you want, you can add some fun details like little bubbles coming out of their mouth, and I'll show you how you can do that. I'm going to try to cut more than one bubble at a time. This is that sheet of construction paper, and I'm just going to fold it in half so when I cut, I can cut more than one shape at a time. I'm just going to cut this off so it's a little smaller. You don't have to do that. It just gives me a little bit smaller space to work with. And I'm going to cut some circles. I'm just going to cut out some circles. If you have a hole puncher, you could use a hole puncher to punch circles too. So I'm just cutting out circles. Since the paper's folded in half, see, I can cut two at one time. That's why I wanted to fold it. And I'm just cutting out some circles. I'm not drawing anything. I'm just cutting it free-handed. Just going to try to cut a couple of different sizes of circles. Some really big ones, some really little ones. And then we can add those to our fish bowl as well. So it can be a little tricky. Just take your time. This would actually probably be easier with smaller scissors. But you can see I've got some different size circles here now. And what I might do now is just add some little bubbles here to show that my fish are breathing. Just like that. A few little bubbles. Might need just one more small set here. All right. And you can see, if I do something like that, then that adds a nice little touch. So all I have to do is add a little glue to those bubbles and then stick them right down. Just adding a little glue and sticking it down. I just use my finger to pick them up like that. Usually they'll kind of stick to your finger. And stick it down. So add a little glue. Whoops, I lost it. There it is. and stick it down. So now we have created this fun mixed media artwork using our origami shapes that we've learned how to make this month. We've also used some other techniques that we've been learning about, like watercolor resist, using crayon and watercolor paint. We could always find our crayons and come back and add a little detail to make these more like bubbles. We could add just a little line right here that kind of shows that these are bubbles. Just a little curved line helps people know that we're looking at bubbles. Something like that. See there? And that's all nice and glued down. You can always test it by picking it up to see if anything falls off. And now we have an origami mixed media artwork. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yours should come along as you're working. Now, you might need a little bit longer to work on this. I've gone really fast today. So you can always work along with me. You can leave his fin hanging right out. You don't have to cut it off. Sometimes their fins might hang out of the bowl. I think that looks pretty cool. Oh, I love it. Nice. I love how you've added the sand. I like how he is fitting in the shape. And you can even work on folding some smaller fish as well to add to your artwork. So these are all cool things that you can add to create a really fun artwork that uses different techniques all together. You guys have done a great job. Now, we are going to be meeting again next month to start an entirely new project. So for the month of May, we're going to be working on creating art with recycled materials. We will be meeting again on May the 13th. So our next class together to begin working on art with recycled materials will be May the 13th. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again then. I'm going to stop the recording, and if you guys have any questions, you can certainly ask them. And thanks for joining me today. Have a good one.